Chapter 506, Cleaner. Boss, she escaped today. I'm afraid that it won't be easy to catch her again. His supporter reminded him carefully. Sheng Li glanced at him impatiently and spoke coldly. I need you to tell me that? Keep an eye on Mo-san. He was able to make an appointment with Anran today. They might have discussed something vague and report his every move to me. The henchman nodded and left. Back at the villa, Anran told Junrong everything that happened today. Junrong was practicing hard and stopped when he heard the news. What did you say, Grandma? Junrong's emotions fluctuated again. He was afraid that Grandma would hurt her body because of him. Don't be agitated. Grandma is all right now. Sheng Li wants to see you like this. You can't be fooled. I'll find time to help you visit Grandma. Your main mission now is to recuperate and recover soon so that you can see her. Anran comforted him. Damn it, did he catch you? Junrong clenched his fists in hatred. He didn't catch me, but Mo-san might not be able to meet me again soon, and he might be targeted by Sheng Li. Anran was a little worried. After all the Mo Corporation's assets were in that account. If Mo-san made a mistake, they might not have a choice. I'm going to do some rehabilitation and practice. Junrong tried his best to stand up on the treadmill. Junrong, you've been doing this for 5 hours. If you continue to practice, you'll overexert yourself, and you can't do this. Anran pulled him back and reminded him. She knew that Junrong wanted to recover quickly and teach Sheng Li a lesson, but he already exercised for 5 hours today. If he continued to practice, it would backfire. Don't worry about me. I want to practice. I'll definitely make my leg better. He ignored her objections and insisted on boarding the treadmill, but before he could take 2 steps, his legs went limp and he fell off the treadmill. Stop running. Skinny, help him to bed to rest. Anran instructed Skinny to help him up. Junrong was furious and anxious. His grandma was critically ill, and the company was about to go bankrupt, and he was living leisurely in bed. He was extremely unwilling. Junrong, I know that you want to get better as soon as possible, but we have to take it one step at a time, Anran persuaded him. Junrong calmed down, thinking about how to deal with Sheng Li. Don't worry, I'll have to ask Mo-san to take the money and negotiate with Sheng Li. I believe that there will be an outcome soon. Anran comforted him. Thank you. Junrong was a little upset. What's there to thank me for? Isn't what's yours mine? To put it bluntly, I'm fighting for myself, Anran smiled and said. Meanwhile, after the hunting incident, Yaxin never returned to their house. She was now living in the apartment Tan Shelin had rented for her. She closed her eyes, filled with the images of Anran asking for her life. It had been so long. Why isn't there any reaction from your stomach? Tan Shelin was anxious. Yaxin was packing away her things and was a little dissatisfied when she heard this. You reap what you sow. Perhaps you're the one who can't make it happen. You only come to my place a few times a week, and yet you still want a child? Her words were filled with jealousy. Tan Shelin thought about it and agreed. Recently, his father was busy finding a partner for him, and he had been dealing with it patiently. How could he have time to come here? I heard that the Mo family hasn't been peaceful recently, and old Mrs. Mo has been sent to the hospital. Are you thinking about how to divide their market? Tan Shelin looked up and smiled when he heard Yaxin's casual question. I didn't expect you to care about such things. That's right. Recently, the Mo family hasn't been peaceful, and their business has plummeted. Sheng Li is preparing to sell the company, and he doesn't have the mindset to care about the market. He has snatched most of their market already. The days of the Mo family covering the sky are over, and now it's our time. Tan Shelin pulled Yaxin into his arms. I advise you not to care about business like that. Your only mission is to hurry up and get pregnant. Yaxin wasn't particularly concerned about this, but even though Anran was dead and Junrong was gone, she still wanted to see the Mo family collapse with her own eyes so that she could live in peace. I heard that there's a famous designer in the Mo family. The clothes she designs are limited editions, and I want a piece too. Can you get her to design something for me? Yaxin had been thinking about Keechaw's work for a long time, but she hadn't had any money. The Mo Corporation was about to close down, and she must be a smart person. She'd be grateful if someone took her in. Tan Shelin thought about it and realized that he had almost forgotten about it. Keecha was a popular designer. Wouldn't the business be enhanced if they could get her? Isn't it just a piece of clothing? The Mo Corporation is bankrupt now. As long as I tell her, she'll definitely come over to serve you diligently. When the time comes, you can have as many clothes as you want. He kissed Jackson downwards little by little. The two of them fell into the sofa. After that, Tanchilin asked about Keecha's residence. In the villa, Keecha had just woken up with a splitting headache. She held her head and looked around. The originally messy room was now extremely clean. She swayed down from the bed and saw that it was empty for a moment. She went downstairs. She thought that there was a thief in the house, so she picked up a broom that was leaning on the side and carefully walked downstairs. Suddenly, there seemed to have been movement in the washroom. She tiptoed towards the washroom. She walked to the door and was about to smash it in when Zhao Han walked out of the washroom wearing gloves and an apron. "You're awake." Zhao Han's face was bright. Keecha hurriedly hid the broom in her hand behind her back and asked in shock, "Why are you here? How did you get in?" Keecha threw down the broom in her hand and looked at the door. The lock had been broken and everything in the house was clean. There were several bags of trash beside the door. "I really don't know how you survive. You dress beautifully every day, but you live in such trash, thank me," Zhao Han said. Keecha sat on the sofa, seeming to feel that something was missing. She stretched out her hand habitually, but didn't grab anything. "Why are Ayn Rand's photos missing?" Keecha's eyes were full of doubt, suspecting that Zhao Han had thrown away all of her photos. "I put away all her photos because I was afraid you would be upset. You've been very depressed these past few days, so I especially came to see you. But don't worry, I will get someone to replace the door lock." Zhao Han took his gloves and apron off and placed them aside. Keecha seemed displeased. Chapter 507, Visit. "Who asked you to help me tidy my things? Who asked you to help me put away her photos? Why are you so arrogant?" Zhao Han didn't speak, but sat down and looked at her with wide eyes. "Keecha, Ayn Rand is dead. You can't be so depressed. When I came in, there were beer bottles and trash on the ground. You weren't like this in the past. Even if you didn't live for yourself, you have to live for her. I don't want to hear your nonsense. Get out now. I don't want to see you. Bring me all her photos. My lifestyle doesn't need to change because of you. I'm such a person. If you don't like it, don't contact me." Keecha was furious. She opened the door, waiting for Zhao Han to leave. Zhao Han wasn't angry. He continued to sit calmly on the sofa, afraid that Keecha would take things too hard. "How can you be so shameless? I told you to get out. Did you hear me?" Keecha took his arm and tried to walk out, but Zhao Han didn't move at all. "I'm not leaving." The moment Zhao Han finished speaking, he smelled the burning scent from the kitchen. "Something seems to be burning," he muttered to himself, but in a split second later, his nerves tightened. "Oh no, the soup I made you is burnt." Zhao Han immediately ran to the kitchen and turned off the hob. He frowned. He was too busy talking and forgot to turn off the fire. The pot of chicken soup was ruined just like that. Keecha was interested in the pot of black chicken soup. After all, she hadn't eaten properly in a long time. He scooped out the black chicken soup and drank most of it. "Doesn't it taste bad?" Zhao Han said. Keecha was focused on eating and didn't have time to speak. "You eat first. I'll throw away the trash." He carried the trash to the door and Tanchilin arrived at the entrance of the villa. Seeing that the door was open, he went in. "Miss Key, long time no see. How have you been?" Tanchilin carried the gift and stood at the door, smiling with narrowed eyes. Keecha drank the last mouthful of chicken soup and looked up at the person at the door. She didn't remember who it was and asked in a daze, "Who are you?" "Miss Key might not remember me, but I have a deep impression of you. We met at the Mo family's welcoming party last time. Perhaps you don't have a deep impression of me, but I know that you're friends with Miss Lan. Miss Lan passed away and you must be very sad. You haven't appeared in such a long time, so I brought a gift and wanted to see you. Can I come in now?" Tanchilin spoke politely. Keecha wiped the soup from the corner of her mouth and spoke indifferently. "Come in if you want." She sat on the sofa, her head leaning against the sofa as she looked up at the ceiling with a hopeless expression. Miss Key, the Mo Corporation is about to be acquired, although I don't know which company is going to acquire the company you are. Sure, it is the right place for you. Miss Lan isn't around anymore. I think you should move to another place. After all, it is a place where you're reminded of her and you'll miss her when you see it. What's your plan? Tan Xilin spoke directly. Are you here to comfort me or poach me? He Chao spoke her thoughts concisely. Tan Xilin smiled and praised her. Miss Key, you're so smart. I'm here today to express my condolences and to ask for your opinion on whether you're willing to work in my company. We will give you everything the Mo Corporation can give you, and you'll even give you more. Miss Key, why don't you consider it? Key Chao smiled when she heard this. Back then, the Mo Corporation didn't give me anything. I went over because of Ayn Rand. Do you want me to jump ship because Ayn Rand isn't around? Tan Xilin was stunned, so that was the case. No other Mojinrong could invite Key Chao over. Humans strive to climb higher, while flowers flows lower. Miss Key, you're so capable, we can all see that. Miss Lan has passed away, and we have to continue with our lives. Miss Key, you look tired. You must not have a good rest these past few days. She's been gone for a long time, Miss Key. I'm sorry for your loss. Tan Xilin sat beside Key Chao as he spoke. His hand was dishonest and wanted to place it on Key Chao's hand. Key Chao glared at him and spoke bluntly. Mr. Tan, please show some respect. I'm not going to your company and I won't be producing any more pieces in the future. Ayn Rand gave me inspiration and allowed me to see the beauty of the world. Without her, my world has become dark. I don't have any inspiration left for you to extract, so please go away. Tan Xilin didn't give up when he saw her despair. Miss Key, think about it. The Mo Corporation is already an empty shell. It's meaningless for you to stay there. There are many people in the Tan Corporation who will help you recognize your dream. Besides, Miss Lan's sister is working at my place. They look alike. You can treat her sister as Miss Lan, and the two of you can be great friends. What do you think? Key Chao picked up his gift and threw it on the ground and shattered it. Get out. I don't need your condolences. And don't mention her sister in front of me again. Those who know the inside story know how bad of a person she is. Back at the memorial, her sister was bent on making a fool of her. She stepped on her sister's ashes without a trace of sadness on her face, as though she had been waiting for her to die for a long time. Do you think I'm blind? That I didn't see anything? Don't let me see her again, or I'll beat her up with everything I have. If you want a piece in your company, you'd better not let me go to your company. Otherwise, it won't be good if I cause a stir. Tan Xilin's expression changed, but then he saw a flash of inspiration, and he seized his face. In that case, I can fire her so that Miss Key can come to work at my company. Key Chao looked at him in disbelief. The man was unscrupulous. She smiled. She's in your company? Isn't she a capable employee? How could you just fire her? Tan Xilin waved his hand and smiled disdainfully. What capable employee? She's just a little girl. Compared to Miss Key, she's nothing. If Miss Key can come to my company to work, you can deal with her however you want. I have no objections if you want me to fire her, as long as you can come over. Mr. Tan, Key Chao won't go over. You don't have to worry. Zhao Han heard their argument when he returned after throwing the trash. He leaned down, cleaned the trash in the living room, and placed the gift box on the table. Chapter 508, Poaching. Bao Zhao, why are you here? Tan Xilin was a little surprised to see Zhao Han swagger in. Could it be that he's my boyfriend? Why can't he be here? Key Chao pulled Zhao Han's arm angrily and smiled. Tan Xilin's expression changed and he smiled happily. Sure, why didn't I know about this? Bao Zhao and Miss Key are a perfect match. Mr. Zhao is also smart. After taking in Miss Key, the Zhao family will have another great general. Tan Xilin sneered. Key Chao looked at Zhao Han, who explained calmly. I never thought about it that way. Key Chao and I are purely in a relationship. Not everyone is as scheming as Mr. Tan. In short, Key Chao won't be working in your company. Take your trash and get lost. Zhao Han handed the gift box of trash on the table to Mr. Xilin, appearing very domineering. Tan Xilin walked past the box of trash and smiled, not saying anything. It seems I am too late. In that case, I won't disturb you anymore. But I still have to say this. Miss Key, please consider the Tan family. I'm not like someone who can play tricks and deceive your feelings. My condolences, Miss Key. After Shi-Len left, Ki-Chao released Zhao Han's arm. In the future, don't let anyone in. What if it's dangerous? What did he say to you? Zhao Han walked with concern. It's nothing. He just wanted me to work at his company. But what he said would make sense. Do you really like me, or did you deceive me so that I could work for your company? Zhao Han's heart turned cold. Is that how you see me? His eyes are full of disappointment. Ki-Chao sat on the sofa at a loss. She couldn't trust anyone around her now that Anren was gone. His chicken soup was delicious. If there's nothing else, he can go back. She walked upstairs dejectedly. Zhao Han didn't explain further and left. Upstairs, Ki-Chao suddenly picked up the hidden photo and cried at it. Hanran, I didn't let you get married. But you insisted and even got married behind my back. Look at what happened now. Both of you are dead. Leaving me alone here. No one loves me, and the only person who loves me is you. But now that you're not around, I don't have someone to talk to. She caressed the face on the photo and continued, Anren, are you doing well over there? At least send me a dream to let me know that you're doing well. Your husband's company is about to close down, and everything you worked so hard to protect no longer exists. What's the point of getting married? Lahan is a good person, but someone like me isn't worthy of him. I might as well let him go early. When she said this, she could feel her heartache. She really didn't want to do this, but the truth was that she wasn't worthy of marriage, let alone Zhao Han. People say that I'm smart and talented. You're the only one who knows I was timid and weak, afraid that others will see through me. You're the only person who understands me. Ki-Chao cried as she spoke. She laid in bed, hugging the photos and crying until she fell asleep. Meanwhile, at the Lan family, Ting Young hadn't video called his daughter in a long time, so he called her. But the person who answered the phone wasn't their daughter. Uncle, Boss is exercising with Jinrong. They didn't bring their phone. When Ting Young heard this, he had a bad feeling. He was too embarrassed to ask and stammered, How is Jinrong recently? Are his injuries better? She didn't think too much about it and spoke directly. Jinrong is getting better by the day. He can still exercise in bed. Liu listened from the side and blushed. She wanted to reply but didn't dare to. Ting Young couldn't take it anymore and spoke directly. Ask your boss to come out and answer the phone. I have something to tell her. Liu nudged Ting Young. How could you let him call her? Before Ting Young could speak, Skinny walked into the room with a phone. Boss, don't do exercise anymore. Uncle Lan called. Liu and Ting Young were flushed with embarrassment and didn't dare to look at the camera. Are young people so open nowadays? Ting Young muttered softly. When Yanran heard his sister's voice, he immediately walked over and moved his head to look at the phone with a smile. What are sis and brother-in-law doing? You're just a child. Don't look any around. Ting Young chased Yanran to the side, telling him that it wasn't suitable for children. Why can't you show me? Yanran expressed his dissatisfaction. Yanran had already picked up the phone, but she couldn't see her parents, so she smiled. Mom, what are you doing? The girl opened her eyes slightly and was relieved to see that her daughter was dressed. What were you doing just now? It's been so long and you haven't called your parents. You have no idea how worried we were for you. Ting Young reproached her. Mom, Dad, I've been a bit busy these past few days. Just now I was doing some bed exercises with Jinron to help him recover better. Amanda didn't think there was anything wrong with what she says, but it sounded harsh to their ears. Why do you tell others everything? Although you're married, such things are private. Jinrong is injured. How could you still do this? Liu was embarrassed to continue. Anran blushed and explained, Mom, Dad, I wasn't. I'm saying that I'm massaging his arms and legs. He's been exercising for more than 5 hours today, and his muscles need to relax. What were you thinking? When Ting Young heard his daughter's explanation, he felt much better and reminded her again. Daughter, Jinrong is seriously injured. Don't torture him anymore. We've been at home for too long without you. When will this end? Ting Young asked. Anna thought about it for about a time, so she said it's about time. You should go back to work. So don't worry about me. That's great. I've been holding in at home for the past few days. Yanran had stopped working for more than a month. He either ate or just slept at home every day and had gained weight. Chapter 509, The First Storm. One more thing, don't do it with Janelle that often. You're still young and your career is your priority. It's too early to have a child at 20. You must be careful. Leah didn't hide it and said it directly. She was a doctor and a mother. She didn't want to see her daughter being burdened by having a child in her early 20s. Mom, I have something to do. I'm hanging up. Anne seemed a little shy. Honey, why are you telling the child this? When Ting-Young saw his daughter hang up the phone shyly, he knew that his wife was in the wrong. I'm a doctor and a mother. What's wrong with me reminding her? Our daughter is only 20 years old. Isn't it too early to be a mother like this? Leah felt that she was right. Although her daughter had gotten married, she was still at a beautiful age and should be reminded of this. Our daughter knows her limits, don't worry. It's been more than a month since we last took care of the hospital. Let's pack up and go to the hospital to take a look. Ting-Young was relieved. Mom, Dad, you don't have to worry about her. She knows better than you. Yan turned to go upstairs after speaking. The planned variety show shoot had been paused for a long time because of the sudden loss within his family. It was indeed time to go back to work. Soon he carried his luggage downstairs and bid farewell to Ting-Young and his wife. He got into the car at the door and went to the set. At the same time, there were many people who were worried about his mental state. After all, he had been in hot search lists for so many times, and everyone knew that his relationship with his sister. With Yanran's sudden death, they didn't think Yanran could adjust to his mental state. Yanran, are you all right? When Wang King heard that he had returned to work, she sent him a message. I'm fine, you don't have to worry about me. When Yanran said this, he was in high spirits. One could tell that he wasn't sad about his sister's death. However, Wang King's next words shocked him. Previously, we signed a 1-year contract, but now that the 1-year deadline hasn't arrived, the Moore Corporation is about to be acquired, regardless of who the buyer is. If you want to stay, you will become an artist under the new buyer. If you don't want to stay, you can leave directly. You don't have to pay the penalty. Yanran, think about it. There are many people in the company who are looking for new opportunities. If you can stay, we promise to give you the maximum resources. Of course, the resources will definitely not be as good as before. If you want to leave, we won't stop you. You can consider it. Yanran was a little surprised to hear this. He debuted in this company and didn't expect to have such a choice in less than a year. In fact, the company treated him very well, especially manager Wang. He thought about it, and with his current popularity, he couldn't lack resources wherever he went. But if he really left, the company would be ruined. Sis Wang, as long as you don't leave, I think I can definitely make my management company famous with my popularity. I debuted in this company. It can be said that this company raised me and watched me grow. Now that it's in trouble, I can't leave it behind. Yanran's words touched Wang King. She was still wavering. After all, many entertainment companies had come to talk to her, and the conditions they offered were much better than the current company. There were many managers in the company who had started to look for new companies, so she didn't want to stay here. But she made up her mind when she heard Yanran's words. Don't worry, I won't leave. As long as you're still around, I'll definitely help you get the best resources. It definitely won't be too difficult with your current popularity. Wang King reached a consensus with Yanran. Thank you, Sis Wang. I haven't taken a job recently, so please get me some new work. Yanran smiled and said. Wang King could tell from his relaxed tone that he didn't seem to be upset by his sister's death. You haven't taken a job in such a long time. Are you really all right? Besides, some people might be curious about your sister. Sis Wang, this is my private matter. I won't say a word to anyone. The state that you're seeing now is my best state. I've tried my best to adjust this past month. Yanran's tone was cold. He wouldn't mention his sister being alive to anyone until she reappeared. Wang King smiled and explained, I've told Sis Zan your schedule. They should be picking you up at Wrong City Airport today. As expected, the entrance to the Wrong City Airport, a large number of fans surrounded Yanran's car. The entire passageway was packed. There were also reporters following the fans. Many of them rushed to the front with cameras and handed microphones to Yanran. Without a doubt, they were most concerned about his sister. This was an explosive news topic that was full of gimmicks. Whoever obtained it would be the king of the news today, so everyone was focused on asking questions. Mr. Yanran, can you tell us more about your sister? Although it's been more than a month, we learned that your parents smashed your sister's ashes. They were also certain that she isn't dead. Have you found any evidence? The people who are very concerned about your sister, including the details of the accident, is it convenient for you to reveal it? A few of them asked questions enthusiastically, and the theme was Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand was dissatisfied. He glanced at the reporters and asked bluntly, "So, you're here to have an interview, me or my sister?" "This is my private matter. I don't have to tell you. Please stop asking questions about my sister. This has nothing to do with you or the audience. If you're here to interview me, please ask some other questions. If not, please leave." The reporters will continue to pursue the matter. "Mr. Ayn Rand, your attitude seems that you don't want to mention your sister again. Did she have any conflicts with you when she was alive? It's been a month. Where is your sister's ashes?" Ayn Rand couldn't take it anymore and roared at them. "A long time has passed since my sister's memorial service. Don't ask any more questions about my sister. I've said it just now. Don't you understand? If you want to ask yourself, go and ask my sister. Don't you have any professional ethics? Are you entertainment reporters or the police? Since you're so interested in my sister, why don't you speak to the police? This is my private matter. Please don't focus on it and give me some space, okay?" Chapter 510, Acting Big. Ayn Rand's tantrum startled everyone. With that, he turned and walked into the airport and left. When the fans behind Ayn Rand saw his uncomfortable appearance, they started to quarrel with the reporters. They were determined to protect their idol's interests. When they saw their idol being bullied, they naturally had to help him. Several entertainment reporters were beaten up by Ayn Rand's fans and taken into the interrogation room by the airport security. They were detained for a long time before coming out. "Damn it, Ayn Rand, just you wait." A few of them were bruised and their faces were swollen because of the fans. They vowed to take revenge. Everything that just happened now was recorded. Whether Ayn Rand was good or bad depended on their mood. Now that they were beaten by his fans, they naturally wouldn't let this go. Soon the matter started to ferment online. Ayn Rand is being arrogant at the airport. He doesn't care about his biological sister's life and came to work with a smile. A shocking title was printed at the top of the article. It attracted countless insults and ridicule. In the past, they were very close on Weibo. His sister is dead, and the true colors of this brother has now been revealed. It can be seen that the good relationship in the past was just an act. This man is too scary. It hasn't been too long since he became popular, but he's already putting on airs and graces. As expected of a rich person, he's too arrogant. The eye-catching title was accompanied by a video of the airport where Ayn Rand was acting arrogantly. The entire process was smooth and there wasn't any signs of editing. Because of this video, Ayn Rand was slandered by many anti-fans. What's going on? Wang King turned on her phone and saw the news online. Ayn Rand had been depressed for more than a month, and this was the first time he came out to work. She called Ayn Rand to ask about today. "Ayn Rand, what happened? Didn't I call Suzanne over to support you? Why were there so many reporters?" Wang King thought that Ayn Rand had called over the reporters and wanted to scold him, but Ayn Rand spoke righteously. "I thought you were the one who called those reporters over. The moment I entered the airport, they asked about my sister. Were they there to interview me or my sister? I couldn't take it and quarreled with them for a while, so they portrayed me like this." Ayn Rand was furious when he saw the news. What did the injuries on their faces have to do with him? Must they say that he beat them? "Are the injuries on their face related to you?" Wang King asked. "I don't know what happened to their faces. The video is in their hands. They recorded it out of context and released it to slander me. I don't know what happened after I left." Ayn Rand was confused when he saw the video. When did he start fighting with those reporters? "Since this has nothing to do with you, you don't have to worry. The matter is related to criminal assault. Don't worry, I'll handle it for you." Wang King hung up and opened Weibo. Ayn Rand's fans stood up to help. "I'm that Suzanne. The people I beat up today have nothing to do with Ayn Rand. I can't stand the low EQ questions from those reporters. The videos were fabricated by them. There were many Ayn Rand's fans present, and they witnessed the arrogant and unreasonable questions from those reporters. It's completely a deliberate revenge. I'm willing to take responsibility for my actions, but this has nothing to do with Ayn Rand. If he wants to compensate, I can compensate, but please do not accuse him anymore." After the statement was released, many people praised her for being brave and the atmosphere immediately changed. Many people apologized for accusing Ayn Rand. Suddenly, a large group of people stood up and said that the statement was being paid for by Ayn Rand. Yes, he has been using this method to clear his name. Many netizens didn't know the truth and were biased and continued to curse him. Wang King sent a lawyer's letter to sue the reporters after they saw the situation escalate. Yan Ran quickly explained the incident at the airport. Some believed it, while others didn't. At this moment, the reporters got his number from somewhere and called him. How is it? It doesn't feel good to be scolded, right? Actually, as long as you apologize to us, things wouldn't have ended up like this. Of course, it can't be resolved with just a spoken apology. As a big star, you should be very rich, right? As long as you spend some money to solve the problem and shut us up, we will immediately remove what we posted from online. If you don't want to spend millions of money, then you'll have to live with such a life under attack for a long time. You can choose from one of these two options. The reporter who called was very arrogant. In the entertainment circle, people like Yan Ran were usually spend money to avoid trouble, but after all, being scolded for a long time would give people a bad impression. But Yan Ran smiled. Who gave you such courage? You know why I debuted, right? Do you remember Fu Goxing? He's in jail now. Why? Do you want to accompany him? The reporter was at a loss for words. He seemed to have really forgotten that Yan Ran's debut. We're not afraid of you. You should think about it yourself. Why don't you spend some money to solve the problem since you're being scolded like this? Do you think we'll be afraid of you just because you sent a letter? His tone was obviously timid, but he was still stubborn. All right, let's meet in court. What I didn't do. If they find out that you tampered with the video, it won't be resolved by going to jail for a few years. Yan Ran smiled and hung up. He casually opened Weibo and posted the recording. He was experienced in such matters. When he picked up the phone, he had already pressed the record button. There was no way they could export him. He then wrote another line on Weibo. I've called the police. I'll see you in court. Yan Ran's move attracted a large number of likes from the netizens, and the comment sections were filled with praises. It was much better than the insults from before. Brother, you're too brave. What a tough child. I was wrong about you just now. I'm sorry. There were many comments like this. Yan Ran had read a few, but didn't care anymore. He then joined the variety show and started filming as though nothing had happened. Chapter 511, Change. In the villa. When Yan Ran saw the news, she frowned. She wanted to help her brother, as she was afraid that he wouldn't be able to handle it. But the more she read, the more she smiled. Yan Ran has grown up and doesn't need me anymore. Yan Ran was delighted as she spoke. Actually, you don't have to worry about him. He's an adult and will handle his own matters. Zhenrong raised a dumbbell and said, He's still a child back then when I helped him. I didn't expect him to take charge now. Yan Ran looked at her phone in joy. Boss, I've done what you asked me to do. Fatty came in and said, What did you let him do? Zhenrong looked at Yan Ran curiously. Fatty is now the chairman of a company. I was afraid Moson wouldn't be able to find a suitable company, so I got him to register a new company that has just moved back to Wrong City. Next, he will be in charge of acquiring the Mo Corporation. His company will be in contact with Moson. The details have been handled, so don't worry, Yan Ran smiled. Sheng Li isn't someone who is easily deceived. Be careful not to be exposed, Zhenrong reminded her. Don't worry, Fatty has done a lot of things like this before, Yan Ran smiled. Have you found Sheng Li's background abroad? She asked at Skinny. I just finished my investigation. Mo Sheng Li has lived in country W well abroad. He did some stocks exchanges and was quite famous for the stocks and shares world. But behind closed door, he's the boss of the largest gang in country W. Over the years, he has been reselling firearms and has control of over half the black market. Many countries are buying weapons from him, and he is an internationally important wanted criminal. But recently, his business seems to have stagnated. Perhaps it was because he moved back to Wrong City and wanted to clear his name, so he started to work only on his stocks. I've investigated his assets and property abroad are countless. He seems to have an illegitimate child who grew up, but she hasn't shown her face. Do you want to investigate her? Zhenrong was a little surprised. He had never heard him mention his daughter. Are you sure that this is his daughter? Zhenrong asked Skinny in disbelief. That's what I found out when I went to Country W to investigate, but his daughter has never appeared in front of anyone. I found out through asking around in places he frequented. Skinny spoke. He has an illegitimate daughter? Zhenrong put down the dumbbell in his hand, stunned. Then go and find more clues about his illegitimate daughter. It would be best if there were some photos. She might be our new breakthrough. Ayn Rand was equally surprised. She had always thought that the man was single, but it seemed that he didn't want his daughter to be involved in this matter. But in my opinion, it doesn't seem like this will be easy. Sheng Li has countless properties all over the world. If he wants to transfer his daughter to another country or city, he can. This is equivalent to searching a needle in a haystack. How are we going to find her? Fatty was stumped. It's alright, we have to try. What if there are some clues? Ayn Rand smiled and said. Skinny nodded and left. Zhenrong was quiet. He moved over to the treadmill step by step and started focusing on running. Zhenrong, it's enough for today. I think that you'll be able to meet Grandma soon, Ayn Rand said. She packed up her things as she spoke. Zhenrong saw that she seemed to be packing her clothes and asked curiously, Why are you packing? Are you going to work? Zhenrong looked at Ayn Rand and instantly felt useless, that he needed a woman to support him. No, I wanted to see Grandma, just for a distance away. Ayn Rand turned to look at Zhenrong. He seemed a little sad as he lowered his head and looked at his leg. It's alright, don't worry. I'll video call you and let you see Grandma with your own eyes, alright? Ayn Rand comforted him. She carried her bag and turned to leave. She couldn't let anyone find out that her identity was hidden. Hence she disguised herself more than usual. At the hospital, Sheng Li sent someone to look at old Mrs. Mo while Nanny Wu walked into the room with a kettle. Ayn Rand pretended as though nothing had happened. She wore a hat and glasses and brushed past her, following her to the tea room. The gangster didn't suspect anything when he saw Nanny Wu go to get hot water. He stood at the door and waited. Nanny Wu, Ayn Rand spoke softly. Nanny Wu glanced up. She didn't recognize the person beside her and continued to draw hot water. Nanny Wu, it's me. Ayn Rand called out again. Nanny Wu found the person in front of her more and more familiar, as her voice was even more familiar than before. She lowered her head and asked softly, You are? Ayn Rand. Nanny Wu was stunned and her hand was scalded after she finished speaking. Ah! Nanny Wu, are you alright? Ayn Rand looked at her hand with concern. Nanny Wu suddenly couldn't feel any pain. She looked at Ayn Rand with tears in her eyes. You're not really dead? That's great, young madam. Nanny Wu whispered excitedly. I'm alright, Zhenrong's alright too. Nanny Wu, don't make a sound. I want to exchange clothes with you. I'll go in and see Grandma. Zhenrong's leg isn't good and he's recovering. I'll call him later and let him see Grandma. Ayn Rand smiled and said. Nanny Wu nodded immediately. She wiped the tears from her eyes and smiled as she took off her clothes for Ayn Rand to change into. She also wore the wig she had prepared. Nanny Wu's figure was similar to hers, but she was shorter. If the hooligans were careful, they might notice. Ayn Rand took the kettle and walked out slowly. The hooligans stared at Nanny Wu intently, feeling that something was wrong, but they didn't know what. Wait a minute. Ayn Rand wanted to open the door, but was stopped by the hooligans. She held her breath, didn't speak, and lowered her head. Why do I feel that there's something wrong with you? The gangster eyed Ayn Rand. He felt that this old lady had become much younger after getting some hot water. He was about to approach when someone suddenly appeared, attracting the attention of the hooligans. Someone chased them. The hooligans had been lured away, and Ayn Rand and Nanny Wu slipped in. Nanny Wu took the hot water and placed it on the table, eager to introduce Ayn Rand. When Mrs. Mo looked, the young madam is still alive. When Mrs. Mo had regained some consciousness, she opened her eyes weakly and looked at Ayn Rand with agitated tears. Ayn Rand held old Mrs. Mo's hand tightly. Grandma, don't worry, Zhenrong is doing well. It's just his leg is injured and he's still recovering, so he can't come see you. Although old Mrs. Mo couldn't speak, she looked agitated. Chapter 512, Company W. She held Ayn Rand's hand tightly, her expression restless under the oxygen mask. Ayn Rand helped her wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes. She took out her phone and called Zhenrong. Zhenrong was extremely agitated to see his grandma lying in a hospital bed. He trembled and raised his phone to cry out to her, Grandma, I'm alright. I'm still alive. Old Mrs. Mo looked at the person on the phone, crying silently. Grandma, don't worry. Zhenrong is really alright. He'll come to see you soon. You have to recuperate well. Ayn Rand smiled. Zhenrong wiped his tears, suppressed his sobs, and squeezed out a smile. Grandma, I'll visit you soon as I'm feeling better. You have to wait for me. At this moment, several men's voices suddenly came from not far away. When Ayn Rand heard this, she immediately put away her phone and slipped out before anyone could arrive. Grandma, I'll visit you again in a few days. The moment Enran left, 2 Kalugans walked in less than 20 seconds later. They opened the door to check on old Mrs. Mo's condition, only to see her a little agitated, and Nanny Wu's eyes were moist. "What happened? Was someone here just now?" the gangster asked. Nanny Wu shook her head and wiped her tears. "No, it's just that old Mrs. Mo and I were talking about the past and became emotional. Don't let me know that you're up to no good behind my back." One of the gangsters pointed a finger at them warningly. They closed the door and Nanny Wu leaned over the bed smiling softly. "Old Mrs. Mo, did you see that? Young master is doing well. You have to get better soon." Old Mrs. Mo's eyes were full of smiles as she nodded. Her expression seemed to have improved. Meanwhile, Yaksen didn't go to work either and had completely become Tan Shilin's lover. She was lying on the sofa eating snacks and watching television. Suddenly, she felt nauseous and put down the snacks in her hand, and she hurried to the washroom to vomit. When she looked at her face, a smile suddenly appeared. She was a medical student and was silently calculating her period. She remembered the nausea in her stomach recently. Was she really pregnant? She smiled happily at the thought, but after a while she was extremely melancholic. Was this child Tan Shilin's or old Wang's? Yaksen wasn't sure who the father was, so she was a little nervous. Then she made up her mind. No matter whose child it was, it could only be Tan Shilin's. She picked up her bag excitedly and walked towards the prison. She didn't look for Xu Yanshan, but her father. Her father had been in prison for a long time, and she hadn't seen him in a long time. The moment she saw her father, she saw many scars and bruises on her face. "Dad, what happened? Were you bullied?" Yaksen looked at the injuries on her father's face and felt her heart ache. Tingy shook his head and smiled casually. "No, those people wanted to bully me, but I beat them up and added a few months to their sentence. Let me tell you a good piece of good news. Your father, me, will be released from prison in 2 months. I performed well and got a chance to reduce my sentence. Are you here to tell me the good news that I'm going to enjoy the treatment of a rich family after I'm released?" Yaksen nodded a smile. "I have a rich boyfriend. His company is owned by his family, and he's a rich second-generation heir. Besides, I seem to have an heir now." Yaksen touched her belly first, appearing a little shy. "Really, my daughter is great. I won't have to worry about food or drink when I go out with a rich son-in-law." Tingy was overjoyed and continued to speak over to the phone. "You're not alone now. There are 2 of us. Isn't Anran dead? Show off at their place again, so you can vent my frustrations. Dad, I can't let my child be tainted by such an unlucky place. This child is very expensive and I still need him, so I can marry into a rich family. Yes, you're right. In 2 months I can go out and see my grandson and take revenge. Ting Young is no longer my brother. Ever since he put righteousness before family and sent me here, I broke all ties with him. From now on, there is only hatred between us." Tingy was furious. After walking out of the prison, Yaksen went straight to the Tan family's company. The moment she walked up the stairs, she saw Jiang Mei and Tan Shilin kissing and hugging. When Yaksen saw this, she was a little displeased, but she didn't say anything. After all, Tan Shilin had said before that he wasn't going to have just one woman. "What are you doing here?" Tan Shilin released Jiang Mei and said, "I'm here to tell you good news. You might have a son." Yaksen said it in front of Jiang Mei, shocking her. "Are you serious?" Tan Shilin immediately perked up, but he was still a little scared when he thought about last time. He started to question her. "Are you sure you're not lying to me? You know what happened to Li Shishi, right?" Tan Shilin touched her belly seriously. "I can go to the hospital with you for a checkup," Yaksen spoke confidently. "Who knows if this child is Mr. Tan's? What if she accidentally cheated on you? Mr. Tan will have to raise someone else's child." Jiang Mei added fuel to the fire. She had been together with Tan Shilin for so many years and she wasn't even pregnant. She had once suspected that Tan Shilin couldn't do it, but now it seemed to be her problem. Tan Shilin immediately retracted his happy expression. "Are you lying to me?" Yaksen's expression changed and her heart beating rapidly as she smiled. "Why would I lie to you? It's alright if you don't believe me. But if you even concluded with others to bully me, I don't think you want this son anymore. You can have a paternity test after he's born." When Tan Shilin heard this, he hugged Yaxin happily. I'll take you to the hospital for a checkup later. If you're really pregnant with my son, I guarantee you'll live a good life. Jiang Mei's eyes were lit up with jealousy. At this moment, she wanted it even in her dreams, but it wasn't her. At the hospital, Tan Shilin was overjoyed that Yaxin was to be pregnant. It's true, she didn't lie to me. Tan Shilin was already in his 40s. It wasn't easy for him to have a child, so she was very happy. He immediately took out his phone and called his father to report the good news. When old Master Tan heard the long-awaited good news, he was so excited that tears were about to fall. He told Tan Shilin to bring Yaxin over immediately and serve her well. He had long forgotten about the fact that he had said that she wouldn't be allowed to enter the house before giving birth. Chapter 513, he is out of prison. At the Mo family, Sheng Li had seriously considered Qin Taiyan's proposal for the company, and in the end he agreed. Suddenly, the supporting outside came in to report. Boss, recently a company seemed to have moved in from abroad. They're very interested in acquiring the Mo Corporation and are offering a much higher price than the Qin family. Sheng Li waved his hand, signaling for him to stop. I have already decided to transfer the company to the Qin family. Tell the other interested parties to leave. Boss, this company specifically said that it wants to acquire the Mo Corporation. The person in charge is already standing outside. He said that he wouldn't leave until he sees you. The subordinate was trouble. Let him in then. Sheng Li didn't know what kind of company it was, but he was a little curious. The lackey brought the person over. Sheng Li looked up and saw a man. He was handsome, had good features, and wore glasses. He looked refined and suitable for business. Boss Mo, I'm very interested in your company. Is it convenient for us to sit down and have a good chat? Kong Taiyan was dressed in a suit and tie and sat down uprightly in a chair. Sheng Li smiled. Sir, may I know which company you are from? Of course. You should have heard of Country K's Corporation W, right? Recently, I've been thinking of moving back to the country. However, I heard that the Mo family is going to sell the company. The world's largest company is applying for bankruptcy protection. This is big news, of course. Our company W wants a piece of the pie. Corporation W? The company that is often ranked 5th in the Forbes list abroad? Sheng Li was a little surprised. He had heard of Corporation W's reputation a long time ago. Because it was ranked 5th in the Forbes list all year round, it was known as the old king of the industry. Its business ability and funds were world class, not to mention its connection and market. It seemed like they were much better than the Qin family. Yes, it does. We have thought of moving back to the country recently, but as you know, most of the market in the country is occupied by the Mo family. If we acquire the Mo Corporation, wouldn't the market be ours? Boss Mo, feel free to state your conditions. Our president said that we can do whatever we can. Kong Taiyan smiled with a scholarly aura, looking harmless. Sheng Li thought about it. This was a good deal. How may I address you? My surname is Kong. You can call me Secretary Kong. We want to buy this company for 50 billion yuan. What do you think? If it's not enough, I think I can add more. The Mo family's strength is worth this price. Kong Taiyan directly raised the price to 50 billion. This was many times higher than the price Qin Taiyan offered. However, Sheng Li didn't believe this so easily. He had only learned of this company before and hadn't investigated their background. He smiled, appearing calm. Secretary Kong, thank you very much for taking a liking to us, but after all, there are many competitors. We will have to choose carefully. You should know that this company was founded by my father and has been in Wrong City for so many years. In fact, I'm not selling my father's company for that little money. It's just because I don't want to see it completely collapse. My father's company failed under my management. Instead of letting it fall apart, why don't we let others continue my father's glory? Sure, I want to find a company that can improve the Mo Corporation both in terms of ability and capability. I believe that this is the case with Corporation W. But I will have to reconsider. Kong Taiyan lowered his head and smiled. He thought for a moment and continued speaking. Of course, I understand. Boss Mo will definitely investigate our company, but it's all right. We're not afraid of your investigation. After the investigation, you will realize that our company has many things that you can't imagine. We have everything you want. Sheng Li nodded and got someone to send Kong Taiyan out. Boss, that's 50 billion. At this deal, We won't have to do business anymore. The gangsters below were excited. After all, no one had seen so much money before. Useless things. He made you agitated for just 50 billion. Since he can fork out 50 billion, then he must be able to fork out 500 billion. I don't believe Corporation W can't even fork out 500 billion. 500 billion! The hooligans were excited again. They wouldn't be able to finish spending so much money in their next lives. Boss, we'll reject the Kin family for the time being. The Kin family definitely won't pay as much as the money as this company. Sheng Li thought for a moment. There were so many people fighting over it, so why couldn't he be a middleman? No, tell the Kin family that I agreed to his conditions. Boss, that's 50 billion. Why did you agree to the Kin family instead of the Gao guy? The gangsters were a little agitated. After all, 500 billion yuan, which couldn't be earned in several lifetimes. Who said I'm giving up? Since both sides want it, let them fight. They can eat meat while I drink soup. Sheng Li greeds came over his rationality. He wouldn't give up the Kin family's 10 billion for nothing, nor would he give up the corporation's 50 billion. After leaving the Mo Corporation, Kang Taiyan got into Fatty's car. How was it? Was my disguise all right? Kang Taiyan tugged at his tie uncomfortably. He preferred to wear sweatshirts, and this tie was strangling him. You do look like a president, but remember, I am the president. Please call me Boss Fatty, Fatty joked. Boss Fatty, please drive. Boss is waiting for us to report back. Meanwhile, in the room, Jinrong was training nervously, and the plan Kang Taiyan made for him was stricter. He originally wanted to take it slow, but time was tight, so he had to train for a few more hours a day. Jinrong, you saw Grandma's condition today. You don't have to be so worried. Anran smiled. I have to appear as soon as possible. Sheng Li is too arrogant now. I'm afraid that if I delay any longer, he'll cause trouble, and it won't be easy to end it. Jinrong sped up the treadmill again as he spoke. Boss, in my opinion, he can sit in a wheelchair and recover slowly. It shouldn't be a problem for him to appear now, Hong Ting said. Anran thought about it and agreed. Other than the wound on his leg that hadn't recovered, the other injuries were almost recovered. There was no need for him to hide anymore. But Jinrong wasn't willing. He wanted to appear healthy in front of the world. Not long after, Fatty and Kang Taiyan returned to report the news. Sheng Li will definitely investigate the company. We can't let anything slip, Anran reminded them. Chapter 514. You don't have to worry about that. I made arrangements for Corporation W. Boss Huang said that he will always be concerned about Boss's kindness and will definitely try his best to help this time. In the future, he also wants to cooperate with the Mo family, Kang Taiyan said. Jinrong stopped and stared at Anran suspiciously. Are you related to Corporation W too? Anran scratched her head and said, Actually, it's nothing. I just happened to help the president with a hypnotherapy session and was a matchmaker for him. That's why I unexpectedly became a small shareholder of their company. Jinrong nodded with a smile. Just a small shareholder? You really are my good wife. Fatty looked at the two of them with a smile. You should cherish our boss. She knows more than you think. Anran smiled but didn't speak. 2 months later, Tingyi was finally released from prison. He carried his bag and looked at the sun. I'm finally out. Tingyang, just you wait. Tingyi didn't go directly home, but went to see his wife and mother. Tingyi, why are you out? Xiao Shimi cried with joy. Xu Yanshan looked at her husband, who had been released from prison, and was extremely regretful. If she hadn't attacked Anran that day, she would have been reunited with her husband today. Mom? Yanshan? Xiao Shumi's aged expression was almost unrecognizable to Tingyi. Xiao Shumi had white hair and didn't look as energetic as she did at home. I'm out, Tingyi said bitterly as he smiled. It's good that you're out. You have to avenge us. Your mom can't eat or sleep here every day. It's all our fault. Xiao Shumi cried. Mom, don't cry. You probably don't know, but Yaxin has a boyfriend and is pregnant with his child. Her boyfriend is a rich second-generation heir. When I go out, I will be treated like a rich person. Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you, Tingyi said. Why didn't she tell me? Xu Yanshan muttered. If you see her boyfriend outside, you must tell me. I want to see what he looks like. Don't worry, I've asked my daughter to pick me up. I might be able to see her boyfriend soon. If you go to Tingyang's house, don't stand on ceremony and attack him directly. That unfiled thing is no longer my son. Xiao Shimi was furious at the thought of her unfiled son. Mom, don't worry, I won't let him off. Tingy made a vicious oath, thinking the same thing. He hung up the phone and walked out of the prison. He stood at the door, waiting for his daughter to pick him up. Finally, a luxury car appeared in front of him. A woman in high heels got out of the car. "Yaxon, you're here to pick me up," Tingy said. He looked around and saw that Yaxon was alone. "Yaxon, why are you alone? Where's our son-in-law?" Yaxon smiled and brushed it off. "He's too busy. I'll take you back first." Yaxon let her father into the car and drove to the villa she was staying in. "Why aren't we going home?" Tingy hadn't been back in so long. Yaxon's expression changed and she seemed a little displeased. "Isn't it good here? Sheilin rented this apartment from me. It costs tens of thousands a month. It's much better than our house." Tingy looked around and felt that his daughter was right. There was a reason why this place was expensive. He could see the forest and greenery not far away from once he opened the curtains. There was also a swimming pool that was much better than his house. He put down his luggage and sat on the soft sofa. He was usually used to a hard bed in prison, so he wasn't used to suddenly sitting on something soft. Tingy laid on it, enjoying himself. Suddenly, he felt that it was time to see his pitiful brother. He was enjoying such luxury while his poor brother was enduring the pain of losing his daughter. He must be very upset right now. As his brother, he should comfort him. "Yaxon, I want to see your second uncle. Drive your best car and dress up beautifully. Your second uncle might be very sad now, so that's why he didn't pick me up from jail. But I don't mind because I'm his oldest brother. My niece has passed away, so I should go take a look. Don't you think so?" Yaxon took out a bottle of good wine from the fridge and smiled. "Of course, speaking of which, I haven't seen second uncle in a long time. Today is a good opportunity to do so." Yaxon packed the bottle of good wine as a gift. Are they worthy of such good things? Tingy snatched a bottle of good red wine, picked up the Coke bottle beside him and poured half of it into another bottle. He mixed it with the beer and white wine, placed it in a gift box, and took it with him. Tingyang had returned to work. Tingyang had just returned home from work and hadn't even warmed up inside yet, but there was a knock on the door. Could it be Anran? Leo came out to the kitchen alertedly. Tingyang walked over and looked through the peephole at the door and saw that it wasn't his daughter. He opened the door with relief. However, the moment he opened the door, the figure turned around. He was stunned. "Tingy, you're out of jail?" Tingyang obviously didn't expect him to be released from prison today. "Why don't you seem happy that I'm out of prison? Back then, you and my niece personally sent me in. Are you complaining that I didn't stay long enough? I'm sorry to disappoint you." Tingy smiled on the surface and stepped into the house. "Who is it?" Leo had just finished cooking a plate of braised pork and placed it on the table. When she saw the two of them standing in front of her, she was dumbfounded. "Tingy? It seems that you're surprised to see me. I have no choice. My sentence was reduced and I was released from prison." Tingy placed the gift on the table and sat down. "Tingy, why didn't you tell us that you were released? We would have come to pick you up." Tingyang had a good temper. Back then, he was furious that the hospital was in such a state, but after a long time, he wouldn't say anything about it. "Pick me up? Are you worthy? Do you know what kind of life I'm leading now? The moment I was released from prison, my daughter picked me up in a luxury car. Look at your car. Can it compare to my daughter's car? I'll be honest with you. I'm here for revenge. Back then, you sent me to prison because of righteousness and thought that you were very capable, right? You sent my wife and our mother to prison. Do you think that you're very capable now?" Tingy suppressed his anger in his heart and didn't shout. Instead, his voice was a little cold. "Tingy, you've been locked up for so long. You didn't know anything. Do you know that Mom and sister-in-law did to my daughter? If they hadn't gone overboard, would I have done such an unvile thing?" Tingyang didn't want to quarrel with him, so he sat down and spoke quietly. Chapter 515, Buying a Hospital. "Aren't you going to see what your daughter did?" Tingy roared. He stretched out his trembling fingers and sat on the sofa, as though he deserved everything. "No matter what, she is still a child and your niece. She did everything for me. If you hadn't gone overboard and instigated Mom to keep asking for money from me, Anran wouldn't have treated you like that. I admit that she's a little extreme sometimes, but no matter what, she's still my daughter." Tingyang started to cry as he spoke, feeling aggrieved for his daughter. "Forget it, Tingyang. I won't say anything now that Anran is dead. I'm just here to tell you that I'm out of jail and my life is great. My daughter is pregnant with my grandson. In the future, without Anran, that Scrooge, the world will be peaceful." Tingy was overjoyed. "Tingy, what do you mean? Our Anran isn't a Scrooge. You're the one who went overboard. I think you're here to cause trouble. Please leave. We're going to eat now." When Leo saw that Tingy liked this, she was furious. Tingy looked at the braised pork on the table and nodded with a smile. Sis-in-law's skills are still so good as ever. The meat is so fragrant, but it wouldn't be good without wine. This is the wine I brought for you. My net worth can't compare to yours anymore, so this is the only wine you deserve. He placed the wine on the table and smiled. Who wants your lousy wine? I don't like it. Leo picked up the bottle and smashed it onto the ground. Tingy's expression changed dramatically. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Sis-in-law, don't blame me. He knocked the braised pork on the table onto the ground. Without the wine, the meat doesn't taste good. Tingy smiled evilly. Second uncle, second aunt, don't blame my dad. He's just anxious for revenge. Who asked you to be so heartless? Damn it, get out. Tingy pointed the door angrily. Tingy stood up from the sofa, straightened his clothes, and patted the dust off his body. Ting-young, since you've said so much, I'll make it clear. In fact, there's something worse coming for you. I'm officially informing you that I'm going to buy your hospital and become your boss. Leo was flustered. This hospital is as important as Anne ran. She wouldn't be willing. In your dreams, I can't give you my hospital. Ting-young was the first to speak. Ting-young, don't be agitated. Tell me how much you want. I can give you a price. My daughter is rich now. The price she gives you might be more than you might spend in a few lifetimes. The accent was shocked. Her father hadn't told her about this. How could she have so much money? Dad, why didn't you discuss this with me? Yaxon spoke softly to her father. What's there to discuss? Previously, we spoke nicely to your second uncle and he didn't agree, but I'll openly buy it, alright? Tingy raised his head and puffed out his chest with a smile. In your dreams, get out. We won't sell it to you no matter how much you pay. Get out. Leo chased him out. Tingy continued speaking. 1 billion. You won't be able to spend it in several lifetimes. Dad. Yaxon pulled Tingy, signaling him to stop. She really didn't have that much money. Get lost. Leave. Ting-young was so angry that his chest hurt. Leo closed the door heavily. Tingy was still outside, shouting, Ting-young, think about it. I'll get a lawyer to talk to you. Dad, why didn't you discuss this with me? I really didn't have that much money. Yaxon felt uncomfortable seeing her father like this. Tingy scratched his head. She was the wife of a rich young master. How could she not have money? Are you lying to me? You're the wife of a second-generation heir. How could you be poor? Dad, Tan Sheila and I aren't married yet. I really don't have 1 billion yuan. No, I have to see Tan Sheila. My daughter is pregnant with his baby and doesn't have any money? That's outrageous. Tingy was about to look for Tan Sheila after he said this, but Yaxon hurriedly pulled him back. Dad, don't go. He's busy with work. Busy with what? Is it more important than my daughter? Tingy insisted on going, so Yaxon had no choice but to pretend to have a stomach ache. What's wrong, Yaxon? Did they hurt you? Tingy hurriedly helped his daughter. Yaxon shook her head and said, I'm alright, it's just because of the pregnancy. Let's go back first. Okay, let's go back. Tingy sent his daughter back, but he still was unwilling. If his daughter didn't have any money, he didn't have any money. Just like the saying, the ugly daughter-in-law would have to see her in-laws sooner or later. He would have to see Tan Sheila sooner or later. Just then, Tan Sheila carried a large box over and was a little surprised to see Tingy. You are... Sheila, this is my dad. He just came out. Do you mind? Yaxon spoke obediently. I don't mind. Uncle Lan. Although Sheila looked down on him, he didn't say anything. Tingy eyed Tan Sheila. The man was wearing a suit and his hair was combed smoothly. He looked like a shrewd and a capable person, but he seemed to be quite a bit older. But he comforted himself that an older man would dot on people. He looked at the things in his hand. They seemed to be nutritious and seemed to be very good for the baby. He seemed like a good person. Dad, this is Sheila. Yaxon was a little stunned by her father's reaction. Have a seat. Tingy acted like a father-in-law. Although he was a rich son-in-law, he still had to have the posture of a father-in-law. Tan Sheila looked at Tingy's expression. Although he was a little unhappy, he didn't say anything on account of Yaxon's pregnancy. Tan Sheila, how old are you? Tingy was the first to speak. I am 42 years old. Uncle, don't mind my age. I have been busy with the company's affair. I was married once and got a divorce because we didn't get along. Yaxon's child is my first child, so don't worry, she isn't a stepmother. Tingy nodded and smiled. You're quite honest, but when do you plan to marry Yaxon? Tell your parents I would want to meet your family to discuss the marriage. After all, Yaxon's belly is slowly getting bigger, and she won't look good in a white wedding dress. Sheila thought for a moment and said, There's no hurry. It won't be too late to get married after she gives birth. Tingy was unwilling and stood up immediately. "No, my daughter must have a wedding. The dowry and the betrothal money is indispensable. My daughter must be married off decently. If you don't agree, let her abort the child."